if you want to see how I try and get rid of that sweaty back rucksack feeling. Stay tuned. This bag cost £1 from a charity shop. It's a great little investment as it's ideal for walking the dog. It's big enough to easily carry a ball on a string, a first aid kit, a water bottle and a cup for the dog to drink out of, some treats, a set of waterproof trousers. However, like this pack and this one, it has one major disadvantage. You get a sweaty back. Now this doesn't really matter in summer, but in the rest of the year it's uncomfortable when you're not walking around to have a wet, cold back. Okay, you can carry a t-shirt, but this is not ideal. An alternative solution is to use a rucksack with an external frame that has some air between you and your back. Something like the Swedish LK35 or the old American Alice pack. Failing that, you can modify your rucksack to give it a gap between you and your back. To do this is fairly simple, providing you've got long enough straps. You can do this using a cheap old roll mat along with a pair of scissors, a marker and a couple of loops either made out of elastic or paracord. The first thing to do is to trim off any uneven edges from your roll mat. Although these pieces are small and irregular, it's worth keeping the larger pieces for other jobs. The odd pieces of camper mat can be used for making padding for things such as radios in radio packs. For tying down the rolled or folded sleeping mat, I decided I would use cords and a Canadian jam knot. As shown, the running end is placed through the double bend and pulled tight in a series of jerks. It then jams solid but is easy to undo. As an alternative to having a round mat, I concertina folded it in order to have a flat pad. Again, this was held together with the Canadian jam knot. After some experimentation, it was discovered that the elastic straps aren't really strong or tight enough to keep the padding in place. Therefore, they ought to be replaced with either tape or paracord. The rolled up camper mat works, but it's not very comfortable, especially if it slips to the middle of your back. Then it becomes uncomfortable and pulls your shoulders back, which means you have to lean forward, which is not the way to carry a rucksack. Tying it on with string was not a success. It moved too much. So I replaced it with a 1-inch nylon tape. That seemed to work better. So I thought I would try a 2.5-inch seat belt with a buckle attached. I concertinaed the camper mat. More comfortable, more manageable, and it stayed in place more easily. It felt much more comfortable against my back. So I decided that I would have it concertinaed and cut to the width of the rucksack. I made the backpack along with the car seat belt strap. I then covered it with tape to hold it together and in shape. I fastened the pad onto the rucksack by passing the car seat strap underneath the straps for the lid. It stayed in place, although not very well. The pad worked. It did keep the rucksack off parts of my back. The pad did its job, but it was not very stable. In future, it would have to be fixed permanently to the rucksack. This is a job I'm rather loath to do at the moment with an expensive rucksack that generally works. Where the pad and the back meet, it gets warm and it gets sweaty. There is a gap between most of the rucksack and you. Despite all the problems, the back pad does work. Not 100%, maybe about 50 or 60, but that's certainly better than having a totally wet, sweaty, cold back. So, get your kit sorted, get out there, get training. You know it makes sense, it will serve you well.